Good afternoon. Today is September the 21st, 2022. I welcome you to this council meeting in the interest of time efficiency and ensuring that everyone who wishes to address the council is given the opportunity to do so. The following will apply to all comments made by the public. Each speaker shall be allotted 3 minutes to address the council unless such time is extended by the mayor or by questions from council. Groups shall designate a spokesperson to avoid repetition of comments. Every effort will be made to avoid interrupting speakers. Thank you for participating in your city government. With that, I call this meeting to order. Could we all please stand for our Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Blackwell.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Matheny.
Here.
Councilmember Urban.
Here.
Councilmember Askew. Councilmember Trace.
Here.
Ms. Millage, would you like to make us aware of agenda updates, either you or the...
I believe the city attorney is going to have an add-on item that has been distributed.
Okay.
And you all should be aware of the add-on item, and that would be added on to council action, so it'll be the second item on the council action.
Thank you. I think we all have a copy of that.
Yes.
There are no presentations at this time, which brings us to our citizens forum. Any person who desires to comment on any item not on this agenda is provided this opportunity to address the city council. Each person is requested to complete a signing form to be provided to the presiding officer prior to or as soon as is practical thereafter the person addresses the council. Would anyone like to speak to the council during the forum? If not, we'll move on to our consent agenda. The next portion of the agenda is our consent agenda, and there are no consent items at this time, so we will move forward to public hearings. Madam Clerk, you please read item number 1 into the record.
Final public hearing for resolution number 2022-187R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, establishing a final ad valorem tax millage for the City of St. Cloud for the fiscal year of 2022 and 2023, the same being adopted prior to the adoption of the final budget for said period.
Good evening, Council. Wendy Colazzo, Finance Director. This is resolution number 2022-187R. This is for the final ad valorem tax millage hearing number 2. As for the statute at 200.065, this is the second of 2 public hearings that are required in the event to adopt the final ad valorem millage that for the City of St. Cloud is at 5.1128. This is 11.79% above the rollback rate, which would have been 4.5736. The rollback rate, these are the same tax dollars assessed in the previous tax years. They're not including, of course, any new construction, and they're measured as millage rate. This ensures that the increase of the taxable value for existing properties is not considered for ad valorem tax. Continuing on, some key takeaways this year for your final ad valorem tax millage. The millage rate, again, is the amount of tax payable per dollar assessed on value of property used in property tax. 1 mil is equal to $1 in property tax levied per 1,000 of a property's assessed value. Governments like ourselves set millage rates based on the total value of the property within their jurisdiction, and then those property taxes are then calculated by multiplying the assessed taxable property value by the millage rate and then dividing by 1,000. In the example provided on your presentation, we put the millage rate, of course, where we're setting at 5.1128. That's on a taxpayer's personal residence. This is what it would look like. Taxable value at $100,000. The property tax bill then is $511.28. How so? This means that for every $1,000 within those 100,000 of taxable value was assessed with the 5.1128, and that is owed in property taxes. In this graphic depiction, you can see the millage rate and its historical adoption for the city of St. Cloud, beginning in fiscal year 2017 and 18. That's as far back as we have gone for this depiction. 5.1128 has been consistently adopted for the city of St. Cloud. Your red graphic depiction is just the rolled back rate as it compares to the adopted millage rate of 5.1128. Again, some summary here. Proposed millage rate for the city of St. Cloud, 5.1128. Our average property tax value estimations, $232,000, and average yearly tax cost estimated at $1,187. Some of the highlights and services as to what is funded by city property taxes in the categories of public safety, these go towards emergency management services and, of course, law enforcement. Related to community, parks and facilities, it goes to recreational programs, cemeteries. In engineering and utilities, some of the uses is roads, walkways, and lighting. And then in community development, public transportation, it goes to development of buildings and licensing, planning, urban design, and sustainability of such. The 5.1128 millage rate is needed to fund increases in the 2022-2023 proposed general budget. Of that is a 9.6 increase in personnel costs, and the factors due to that is, one, the salary survey implementation at $1.3 million, 5% cost of living adjustment, also known as COLA, $975,000, 6 new general fund positions, $566,869, and then an increase in health insurance costs with a totality of $481,287. On the latter, increase in operating cost due to those goods and services and increases in level of services. Of such, some highlights: public safety, $805,230 an increase, and in parks and recreation, $396,778 projected increase in expenditures to provide the services we do in those categories. Staff is recommending approval of resolution number 2022-187R and is requesting action from council to do such, that is to approve such resolution 2022-187R. I can answer any questions if the council so does, please.
If you'll hold for just a moment.
Yes, sir.
We'll receive public comment at this time. David Meissner.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, David Meissner, 3410 Polly's Loop North, Stevens Plantation. I'm sorry to come on tonight and talk to you at your final public hearing on several items. On your millage rate, at this point, I think it should have been raised a bit. You're short positions in certain categories, and I felt I should have done, and I'll address those in the budget. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak to this item? If not, we'll have discussion, questions, and or motion by council.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion from Councilmember Matheny for approval. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Councilmember Urban. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Trace.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny. Aye. Councilmember Urban.
Aye.
Councilmember Askew. Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Brings us to item number 2, Madam Clerk.
Final public hearing for resolution number 2022-188R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, establishing a final budget for the City of St. Cloud for the fiscal year 2022-2023, the same being adopted following the adoption of a final millage rate for said period.
Good evening again, Wendy Colazzo, Finance Director. This is resolution number 2022-188R. This is for the final public hearing, 2 of 2 for fiscal year 2022-23 adoption of the budget. As per Florida Statute 166-241, we are required as a city to adopt the budget each fiscal year by ordinance and/or resolution. The amount available from taxation and other sources, including balances brought forward from prior fiscal years, those must equal the total appropriations for expenditures and reserves. In other words, the adopted budget must balance. In the following slides, I will go through revenue and expenditures, giving you a graphical representation of those resources and where the inflows and outflows have been designated. The fiscal year 22-23 budget revenue and is balanced at $209 million, 209.2 million. The segregation and allocation and/or allocation of those revenues going into the general fund is $63.1 million, 30.2%. In special revenue funds, $46.3 million, equaling 22.1% of your revenues going towards special rev. In debt service fund, $2.6 million and/or 1.2%. Capital projects, 15.2%. 15.2 million or 7.3%. In the enterprise fund, $69.8 million or 33.4%. And internal service funds, $10.4 million or 5%. And finally, in economic development type funds, $1.8 million and or 0.9% of a percent. In the inverse side for your expenditures, fully balanced at $209.2 million, your outflows are distributed as follows: $63.1 million, or 30% of that, to the general fund, 46.3 again, 22.1% in special revs, debt 2.6, 1.2%, in capital projects 15.2 million, 7.3%, in enterprise funds 69.8 million and or 33.4%, internal services 10.4 and or 5%, and finally economic development $1.8 million, 0.9%, fully balanced, net zero. The final revenue by type, as we allocate out $209.2 million, graphically presented in front of you, is reserves taking in $16.9 million or 8%. The general government taking in 31.7 and or 15% in revenue, and then internal government in the, I skipped permits and fees, that's your darker green, 32 million or 15%. Intergovernmental 8.3 million and or 4%. Your teal color 70.8 million or 34%, and that is for charges and services. Judgments and fines in the latter orange, 39.0 and or 39 million or 19%. Miscellaneous in the lighter blue, 8 million or 4%. Other sources coming in at 0.1 and or not even enough to report 8%. And finally, non-operating, 2.4 million and or 1%. Revenues by source in the general fund, focusing on $63.1 million of revenue for the general fund, $7.5 million or 11.9% in fund balance forward being called on, 18.3 million or 29% in ad valorem proceeds. Other taxes in the darker green is 1.1 million or 1.7%. Licenses and permits, 1.9 million or 3%. Intergovernmental revenue, 6.7 million or 10.6%. Charges for services in the green, orange, 4.6 million or 7.3. Fines and forfeitures is that tiny little sliver there you see at 0.1 or 0.2% of a percent. And miscellaneous revenue, 3.4 mil or about 4%, 0.4%. And then finally, other financing sources, 19.5 million or 30.9%. Expenditures by function for fiscal year 2022-23 for the general fund, fully balanced at $63.1 million. Of that, $17.4 million, excuse me, let me back up, go to the blue there, 1.1 million or 2% for reserves. In the red, general government services at 17.4 million or 28%. Public safety, 33.5 million or 53% of the general budget. Transportation, 2.5 or 4%. Parks and Recreation, 8.3 or 13% of the budget. And then other financing use and or uses is 3K or less than 1%. As we move on, graphically depicted through the rest of the slides here are your projected unaudited fiscal year 22-23 year-end fund balances per fund. In the general fund, $9 million of projected fund balance. Capital projects, $12.5 million. In Parks Impact, 12.3. Police Impact, 5.1. Fire Impact, 565,000. Mobility Fee, 16.2. Sanitation Impact, 379,000. Sanitation, 820,000. Stormwater, 1.1 million. Building Permit, 2 mil. Motor Pool, 280,000. Gas tax, 414,000. Utility services, 421,000. The 1% fund, 256K. OUC Interlocal, 458,000. And no projections at this time for Toho Interlocal, as it is our first year of creating this fund. Self-insurance, 316,000. Self-insurance workers' comp, 1.3 mil. CDBG has been activated this year, reopened again, so there are no projections at this time. Economic development, 50,000. The CRA, $1.1 million. Those are your projected fiscal year 22-23 unaudited year-end fund balances. Staff is recommending approval of Resolution 2022-188R, requesting same approval from Council for that resolution of 2022-188R.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we missed a slide in there. No, maybe it wasn't updated onto the version that was on the PowerPoint presentation. Council, if I could go ahead and add, as you know, the budget includes the salary study for all of our employees, and there have been some employees concerned about the results of the salary study. Our HR director, Justin Klusner, is reviewing each of the employees' concerns on a case-by-case basis, and any adjustments that he determines are necessary are going to be handled as part of their normal operating procedures. However, the study did not compensate employees for more than 5 years of service. The study did recommend that the city does look at a longevity bonus or a incentive for longevity. So we have included in this budget, and it's already included in the numbers, that there will be a one-time longevity pay adjustment increase. And this is going to be immediate for us to be fair to those employees, and then we will work on a long-term solution as the study recommended. So I believe there's a resolution that has been passed out to you. There's a second resolution. Yes.
And there should be a red line version that changes.
Yes, on page 2, it does have a red line version. Our city attorney has added language in there so that we can be consistent with the state statute to add this one-time longevity pay. He also added similar language to our existing holiday pay bonus to our employees. So the revision is to address this being added to all city employees, including the fire union, who have requested to also be included. So this will be given to employees who have 5 or more continuous years of service with the City of St. Cloud as of October 1st, and who are employed in good standing and without pending disciplinary action as of October 15th. in the amount of $600 for 5 years of service, plus $30 for each additional year of service beyond 5 years with no maximum. This excludes the police collective bargaining unit because the city council already approved one for them recently at a recent city council meeting. However, would like to clarify, the intent of that was to provide credit to the police officers for all years of city service. The resolution was written only giving them credit for their time within the police department. It only affected 2 officers, but they have requested, and we support giving them the credit and for all years of city service. So staff recommends that revision to the resolution as part of this final budget.
Any other comment from staff? All right. This time we'll have public comment. Mr. Meisner.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, David Meisner, I live in Stevens Plantation. I read your budget. It is quite lengthy and extensive. I'm a little surprised at a few items in the budget. You discussed personnel staffing for your police and fire for the last few years, and yet I see only 2 or 3 positions this year, when you're probably 30 positions low on police officers and about 15 low on fire personnel. As the city grows, you need more positions, and you're not approving to keep track or keep up with the growth of this city. It's doubled in the last 15 years. As you've brought out many times before, you're still growing extremely rapidly. Without these positions, I think we're going to see the crime rate actually rising versus dropping. You have a professional force now. You've given them some good salary increases, and I'd hate to see them being overworked. Plus, your overtime budget is going to climb drastically the more positions that they are behind. And another thing I questioned was the number of projects you have from previous year budgets. It's almost 2 pages in length. Do you have the staffing to monitor projects like that? You're not increasing the staffing in these areas, and I question that. That's why I questioned about the millage rate should have been raised, because you are growing rapidly, and I think you should be proud of that. But you need to address the growth issue. There's not a growth in there for a substation for police and fire on the Narcosi Road corridor at all. The response time is getting worse, but yet there's no plan for that, and I'll address some of that in your next resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Meisner. Would anyone else like to speak to this item? If not, we'll have discussion, motion, or questions by council. Councilmember Matheny.
Mayor, could we have the police and fire chief address those concerns?
Good evening, Council. Doug Gerke, Police Chief. Yes, we are well aware that the city is growing exponentially. We are actually looking at a patrol car assessment model survey to capture the calls for service. That's something we haven't done before. So to actually get an actual staffing model, you can use certain different methods. You can use a metrics of officers per 1,000. That's an easier one to do. I've seen some out there 2 per every 1,000. Obviously, the growth rate, it's growing very quickly, but we're trying to find out the happy medium. ICMA, which is the International County Managers Association, uses an assessment where it kind of breaks it down on a 60% of every 60 minutes, a police officer is tied up on a call for service. So we're analyzing that now. We weren't able to do that in the past, and I think one of the biggest things that we were not able to capture was report writing. So what the officers are doing is they're going to calls for service, and they're clearing the call, but then they're sitting in a car and still writing a report. So we actually just implemented that for report writing, so I can actually capture that now. So I will be able to address Mr. Meisner's concern and actually understand whether or not how many more we do need at a time. It is clear with the congestion, calls for service are going up, and our response times are moving down. We have been starting to analyze substations throughout the city, but I will tell you, law enforcement is a little bit different than the fire stations, where you have to have a fire station in a certain area. But the police officers, the offices are actually the police cars themselves. So we do actually redistrict some of the positions, so we have officers in the Narcousie corridor. Clearly, it would be a great idea going forward down the line to look at strategically placed substations down the road to actually have citizens to actually come to a substation. Flattening out the organization, and when we look at the growth model, we talked about phased approach to building, and that's where I was. Flattening out the organization is clearly the right move as the city gets larger, so we can build substations, and that is clearly going to be in the planning phase for the future. In addition to the two positions, which is a lieutenant and a sergeant, the idea is that we actually wrote for a COPS grant as well. So we actually did ask for 6 additional police officers on top of that. So that will actually give us our evening shift rotations that we're trying to build, which is basically accounting for all of the heavier call volumes during the day. So an idea of that would be Monday through Thursday, the officers would be working, a sergeant and 4 more officers would be 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And then on the weekends, it would be 3 p.m. to 3 a.m. So we'll be able to account for a lot of the heavier call volumes and response times. So that's how we're actually addressing this. But since we just started analyzing the report writing and things like that, it's very difficult for me to actually come up with a number in accordance with ICMA models, what they're asking for. So, but I promise you it is work in progress, and I'm hoping within 6 months I'll be able to give you an update of what we found based on that model. Do you have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I really like that time on call as a measurement, so the 2.2 per 1,000, so we know exactly how time's being allocated, and, you know, it's just a completely different model, and I like that you're moving towards that instead of how we had it before, as policy before. And also, one thing that doesn't come to account sometimes when we look at the positions we're adding this year are the mid-year positions we added from last year. I think we added some police officers, we added some firefighters mid-year last year, which don't really show up in this report, but they're the benefit of this fiscal year.
That is correct. We did add some officers to the CRA as well, so we added 2 more police officers on that as well, so the downtown area. But yes, and we're also looking at the model, so we make sure that if we need to put more police officers on the road, our tactical operations units are actually going out, our street crimes units are doing more to interdict the crime, and especially with the intelligence-led policing and our crime center, we're actually looking at a lot of the call data that we're receiving, and we can actually pinpoint down to the days, times when some of these calls are being most prevalent, and we can put those officers in those areas to prevent and or deter or actually capture the crimes in progress. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chief. Chief Miller.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Jason Miller, Fire Chief. As you both or everyone knows, we are currently in the process of opening a temporary station out at Tahokwa, with the permanent station shortly there behind breaking ground. Our plan, as well as our strategic planning, calls for as soon as that station's done, that temporary station will be moved to the east side. To address the staffing concerns, we have applied for the SAFER grant. To this point, we have not been awarded it. We hope to be awarded it. If not, you'll see me probably back up here around mid-year begging and pleading for positions. We do have some staffing contingency modeling that we're working on doing to address some of those concerns. Going along with some of our long-term effects of trying to grow, we're in a time that nobody has ever seen before when it comes to vehicle fleet replacement problems. From today, if I order a fire truck, it's now up to 30 months. I think the last time I was here, it's 28 months. So we're in a very unique position. We have multiple agencies throughout the nation ordering tons of fire trucks, which is driving up the lead times on those trucks. At the same time, here in Florida particularly, the population is exploding, and we're trying to open new fire stations. So that squeezing of the balloon, where it would normally just squeeze from one side to the other and we'd be able to get a finished product, as the Chief said, that balloon has now gone from a 11-month period to a 30-month period just for a fire truck. Construction process is taking even longer. I met today with some representatives from a local construction company to do a construction manager at risk project, and they're saying even with everything going swimmingly perfectly, they're running 15% over time, 20% over projected time, without even the blink of an eye. So our steps, as it currently stands, is we have multiple fire engines on order, which will address the apparatus issue. We have multiple ambulances on order. Again, we're still delayed on those. Once construction is complete on Fire Station 35, we plan on moving that temporary station over to potentially North Tyson Road, where we already have property, and we'd stand up a temporary station there for the east side. As far as response times go, our response times are slipping a little bit. Obviously, I think we all know there's a little bit of traffic out there, extremely heavy traffic at other times. But we're taking steps to try to manage that as far as if units know the traffic flows, which they're pretty akin to. If one unit knows they can get there faster than another one, they'll cancel off the other unit and somebody else will pick up that call. And, it's based off of direction of travel and time and delay. As far as additional staffing, as you know, if you apply for federal grants for personnel, depending on those positions, you also cannot budget for those same positions inside of your budget. That is against the law. And that's one of the reasons why we did not ask for more positions currently, is because we were in anticipation of the SAFER grant. Again, at mid-year, if we do not receive the SAFER grant, then you'll see me back up here asking for more personnel. Anybody has any questions?
Thank you, Chief Miller.
Thank you.
Do we have any other discussion by council?
Motion to approve the revised resolution that was provided to us this evening.
We have a motion for the adoption of Resolution 2022-188R as amended.
Second.
And we have a motion from Councilmember Matheny, a second from Councilmember Trace. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Deputy Mayor Matheny.
Aye.
Councilmember Urban.
Aye.
Councilmember Askew. Councilmember Trace.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Madam Clerk, if you'll please read item number 3.
Final public hearing for resolution number 2022-189R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, adopting the 2022 through 2027 5-year capital improvement plan with an effective date of October 1st, 2022 through September 30th, 2027, subject to annual review and amendment as needed to support the service levels and community needs.
Thank you. Good evening, Wendy Colazzo, Finance Director. Resolution number 2022-189R, as per the City of St. Cloud's Charter in Article 6, Financial Procedures, Sections 1 through 7. In that article, this is the section of the City of St. Cloud's Capital Improvement Plan. This establishes, prioritizes, and defines your funding for capital projects to improve existing systems and develop new infrastructure and, of course, facilities. In the presentation, you'll see here the total costs, project costs by department, total of $210,659,899. In the building department, 3.8 mil. Fire rescue, 58.9 million. Human resources, 112,000. 550,000 in finance. Information technology, 9.6 million. Parks and Recreation, 57.9 million. Police Department, 43.8 mil. And then Public Works Department, 36.1 million. Going through the next slides, this is your 5-year CIP funding with its sources. In the general fund, $14,906,321. In the 100 fund or the local option gas tax, $2,150,000. In the 120 or known as the 1% surcharge fund, $24,602,382. In the 320, the recreation impact fee fund, $17,062,314. Police impact fee fund, $6,300,000. In the fire impact, $9,027,105. And the mobility impact fee fund, $850,000. Sanitation fund, $10,579,500. Continuing on, the stormwater fund, $1,526,275, with the building fund at $7,290,000, and then economic development, $662,000. There are 2 issuances of debt in order to complete the funding strategy for your CIP plan. Those 2 tranches would be debt number 1, identified at $65,018,000, $65,018,540, and then the second tranche, debt 2, $54,185,462, for a grand total of $214,159,899 for your 5-year strategic CIP funding sources and needs.
That's 214 million.
Did I say something different, sir?
You said 214,000.
It would only be a dream, but thank you for the correction. Let us go back to reality, and $214,159,899. I so stand corrected. In this following slide, this is your CIP debt loan assumptions for, as I mentioned before, debt 1 and debt 2. Debt 1 is anticipated with assumptions in 2023. The project funds for those proceeds would be loan proceeds of $65,018,540. No capitalized interest on that, but the issuing cost comes out to 1.5% of those costs, or $975,260. So the total principal loan on that would roughly be about $993,800, excuse me, with an issuance of 30 years in the term of issue. Interest rate borrowing, 5%, and year of borrowing 2023, with an average annual debt service payment of $4,293,000. Just a caveat to this, of course, you got to remember the CIP plan was done at a certain interval of time for budget preparation, and as we all know, our federal government has now changed that and increased some pointage, so that would have an impact on this. But however, our purchasing power would probably come into play here to be able to capitalize the best interest rate we could, but we would assume that we would probably see a little bit higher interest rates. Hopefully this is a valley and not a peak. Debt 2 is anticipated on 2024. Following that, for proceeds in the total of $54,185,462. Excuse me. Again, no capitalized interest on that. Same issuance, projected cost of 1.5%, or $812,738. Your total principal issue on that would be $54,998,200. Again, I stand corrected. That's where I said it. $54,998,200. The mayor has me dreaming. Terms of issue, again, 30 years, 5%, year of borrowing in 24, and our annual projected payments, $3,577,700. Getting us towards the end, this capital project budget, I've listed, and we'll go through some of those projects that are significant and listed here, and that we're running in our current capital for 22-23. PR 1906, excuse me, trail extension for Lake Chisholm, $1 million coming from the Parks and Impact Fee Fund. PR 2301, Chisholm Park, the master plan, $1 million from Parks Impact Fee. PR 2302, the Hopkins Park master plan, $500K from the Parks Impact Fee again, fund. And then PR 2303, Pardon Triangle, $630,000 from Parks and Impact Fee Fund. PS 2103, this is Fire Station 35, $4.5 million from the 120, or the 1% surcharge fund, and $3 million from the Fire Impact Fee. PS 2301, Modular Office for PD, $415 from the Police Impact Fee Fund. ST 2301, the Master Paving, 1.2, this is from the Gas Tax Fund. And ST 2302, the miscellaneous, this would be for miscellaneous road connections at $1.5 million from the Mobility Impact Fee Fund. ST 2303, 10th Street Complete Streets, $515,000 from the Mobility Impact Fee. ST 2304, Michigan Avenue, the PAD project, $110,000 Mobility Impact Fee funded. ST 2305, Massachusetts Avenue Extension, $110,000 for Mobility Impact Fee. ST 2306, Creekwood Drive Extension, $420,000 Mobility Impact Fee. ST 2307, 17th Street Extension, $210,000 for Mobility Impact. And ST 2308, 5th Street Upgrade, $70,000 for Mobility Impact Fees. Your fiscal year 22-23 total capital projects funded, $15,195,000. If I may, to address the questions that had already kind of stated with the capital, this is one of the years where over 67 projects were closed for the city, and we have streamlined this. Also take into consideration that water sewer projects are no longer in the city over the rest of the period beginning October 1st, and that has been removed from the city's responsibility, and that CIP has been redeveloped for their purposes up in Toho. Other than that, this is Resolution 2022-189R, where staff is recommending approval and requesting approval from council for such resolution.
Thank you, Ms. Colazo. Excellent. Mr. Manzares.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask for just a brief recess of this meeting. I think I just discovered an issue that we may have to go back on the millage rate vote. The millage rate. Okay. The millage rate, if you do the math on the millage rate over the rollback rate, it's over 110% of an increase over last year's rollback rate based on the previous year. That requires a 5-0 vote of the city council. And since Mr. Askew is not present, we probably need to try to go back and get that resolution. Veronica's contacted him, and we can get him set up to call in. He can appear by telephone, but I want to make sure that we get this right.
So how much time do you think we need?
I don't know how long Jay needs. Jay, can you show me fingers?
Unless I'm wrong on the calculation, I don't think I am.
We're checking right now. I don't think that may be correct, but.
So, and if we could I just want to make sure we get it right.
Okay.
I've never allowed an attorney for math, so.
I went to law school because I don't do math. I don't, so according to the resolution, it's 11.79% increase over the rollback rate. So. Anything, the statute says an increase of 110% of the rollback rate over 110 requires a unanimous vote of the city council, which would mean a 5-0.
Can we wrap up this item and then go back to that one? Or do we have to revote on everything?
Well, the other items are kind of dependent on this.
Well, the budget is dependent on the millage rate.
Yeah.
So we'd have to get that millage rate done, and then, but I think you can address.
Can we do 4 and?
We can. I don't know how long it is before he's going to call in.
I told him that we would call him. I don't know how long it will take Jay to set that up for us.
You think I'm wrong?
We just did the math, so we're going to write it out right now, and then we'll go over and do some math if you guys would like to, because we don't come up with that. It's, yeah, and it's.
I'm all right with being wrong. So don't you just take 110 and % multiply it by the 4.79, and that gets you your millage rate? That you can go without having to go to a unanimous approval? Again. So the rate went from, the rollback rate was 4.5736. If you multiply that by 110%, that gets you to about 5.0. Am I doing that wrong?
Yeah, we wouldn't multiply it for 110%, so we took 5118.28 divided by the change, 4.5756, gives us 11.79, minus the change. That's how you normally calculate, and this is also on your trim package. It's electronically done, not manually done for the calculations.
Okay, so the statute says a rate in excess of 110% may be adopted if approved by a unanimous vote of the membership of the city council. So that's what the statute says. They use the formula of the 110%
Increase,
right?
right, which 5.11828 over the rollback rate minus the change would be 11.79% change. Increase.
That's typically how, we've obviously never come to this issue before. This is the first time we've had 4 council members sitting and voting on it. So that's
And we're
what-
not disagreeing, we're just, what we have and then what you have, whatever's right is right.
I'm just
So,
reading
yeah,
it, I'm just
absolutely.
reading from the statute, so. I would respectfully, it can't hurt to get Mr. Askew on the phone to vote, to re-vote
So
on
that's
that
acceptable.
resolution.
If we get him on the phone,
And he votes, he can appear he can appear telephonically as long as there is a majority of a quorum of the council present, and obviously 4. So, and I apologize for just want to make sure we get it right.
So he's calling in, or give him the phone number, or?
Do we want?
Just call him in.
I can call him. I'll give you his phone number.
Why don't you just call him on,
Yeah.
call him right there and put him on your mic?
That way he can hear.
You're gonna pick him up for the record and stuff, right?
Yes.
Okay, so. It's 407. Oh. Right. Okay. No, I was gonna give you the number of this.
Oh, to have him
Yeah.
call? He's driving?
Oh,
Can
okay.
we call- can
Yeah,
we call
sure,
him?
sure, okay. Well, we wanna call him on this, though.
Yes.
Okay.
otherwise she can hold her phone up to the mic.
We're calling you right now.
Where is it? That top one?
The top one. Can you call, I can text you the phone number, we were having a hard time calling you on it. Okay, I'll text it to you right now.
Dave?
Yes, it's Dave.
Hey, Dave, it's Jay. You're on speaker.
Hey, Jay.
You're on speaker and on mic, everything like that.
And we have to wait
Okay,
for
thank you.
Mr. Trace to come back.
Gotta wait for Mr. Trace now.
Well, we can start,
Why don't-
if I may, Mayor.
Councilmember Askew, we're going to ask Attorney Manzares to explain to you what our situation is right now. Mr. Manzares.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Askew, can you hear me? I guess not. Can you hear me, Dave?
Yeah, I can barely hear you. Yep.
Okay.
Just stand over there.
Give me a second. So, Dave, can you hear me now? Is that better?
I can hear you perfect now.
All right, great. So with regard to Resolution 2022-187R, which is the millage rate resolution, the City Council has received a presentation on it. I'm sure you're familiar with the resolution as you saw the packet, right, and address it, be able to address it?
Yes.
And so essentially, and Wendy, if you could help me out here, because I left my stuff over there. If you could, what we want to do is just quickly make sure that we are in compliance with the state statute that deals with the millage rate increase, because the millage rate is possibly in excess of 110% above the rollback rate. It requires a unanimous vote of the City Council. So if I just could, because I know you're familiar with the millage rate and the process, if I could just have Wendy read the numbers, the rollback rate number, and then the proposed millage rate.
Yes, sir. So the proposed millage rate is 5.1128, and the rollback rate is 4.5736.
Okay. So you have any questions on that, Mr. Askew?
No, I do not.
Okay. So if we could, Mayor and Council, if we could just have another motion to approve resolution number 2022-187R, which has already had public comment on it, and then we could just have another follow-up vote on that.
Councilmember Athene, would you reaffirm your motion?
Motion to approve.
Mr. Councilmember Trace? Have a second?
Second.
Oh, Urban, I'm sorry.
I'll second.
And Mr. Urban has a second. Are we ready to call the roll? Please call the roll, please.
Councilmember Askew,
Aye.
Councilmember Trace,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny,
Aye.
Councilmember Urban,
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
And Mr. Askew, we're going to go ahead and just do it because the statute says you can only adopt the budget after you adopt the millage rate, so we're going to go back and deal with Resolution 2022-188R. You're welcome to hang on the phone, of course, obviously, but you're not needed for that. And I know you've read the budget resolution and the proposal. Do you have any questions on that?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. So if we could just have another motion to approve that resolution, just so.
Could I have a motion for the approval, once again, of 2022-188R as amended?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and from Councilmember Athene, a second from Councilmember Trace. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Trace,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny,
Aye.
Councilmember Urban,
Aye.
Councilmember Askew,
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay. We're back to the capital improvement resolution. Thank you. I apologize.
Thank you, Mr.
And of course,
Askew.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Drive safe.
Thank you. Bye.
So he's done.
He's done.
Thank you, Jay.
Now, we passed a resolution 189R before we got public comment. Mr. Meister, would you still like to speak to this item? Please do so.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, David Meisner, live in Stevens Plantation. I did review the 5-year plan. I'm happy to see you have a 5-year plan now. I remember a few years ago there was no plan like this. I did go through a few of the things. I'm glad the finance director brought up the interest rate issue because I was a little surprised about that. It wasn't covered in the initial documentation, but she explained it very well. I was concerned about the aerial truck, and then I did get clarification on that. It's not as listed as a truck in the 5-year plan. My concern was on police vehicles. In a 5-year period, you only have 1 year you're going to buy replacement vehicles for the older vehicles that need replacement in the police department. And 1 year you're going to buy the new vehicles for the new officers. Most law enforcement agencies will budget to replace vehicles on an annual basis, on a percentage, not wait 5 years before you replace vehicles, because the nature of their positions and the type of vehicle usage they have, it's going to be difficult that they cannot replace a vehicle for 2 to 5 years after it's been damaged or destroyed. And I think you ought to reconsider about putting that on a line item every year for the 5-year period versus just a 1 year. I hope I'm wrong, but I did see that in the plan. It was only once every 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else in the audience like to speak to this item? Mr. Manzares, your light is still on. You're not wanting to come in, are you?
I'm trying to
you.
stay quiet, Mayor.
All right, that brings us to the next item on the agenda. Will you please read that into the record? Item 4.
Did we take a?
We
We
didn't vote.
didn't
Sorry,
even take
sir,
a
you didn't
motion and
approve
vote
it,
on
sir.
that one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I just want to kind of give my same comments
Getting a
in
little
brief
slow here, yeah.
from last meeting. I just want to make sure that I think there's some work to be done still on the capital plan. It's good. It's a good framework. Maybe move some projects around, spread some of that out. Like I think it was IT had a bunch in 1 year and then nothing the next year and that kind of thing. Kind of the same with Mr. Meisner's comment, but just look at that through all the budget years. And then 66 million is a whole lot to do all at once. So we'll need to look at staffing. We'll need to look at OpEx as well on some of these capital improvements. So if we do a $5 million park, well, it's probably going to cost $500,000 to $1 million a year to maintain that park and staff it and all that. So I just want to make sure we're looking into that. And then also, it'd be nice if we had some more road projects in the 5 and 10 year capital plan.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to comment on that item in the staff? The council? If not, could I entertain a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion from Councilmember Trace, a second from the mayor. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Urban.
Aye.
Councilmember Askew. Councilmember Trace.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Now we'll go to item number 4. I'm sorry.
Final public hearing for ordinance number 2022-56, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, amending City Code Chapter 44 Utilities by repealing in their entirety Article 2, Sanitary Sewer System, Article 3, Reclaim Water, and Article 4, Potable Water, adding new Article 2, Sanitary Sewer, Reclaim Water, and Potable, Sections 4-31, Adoption of Toho Water Authority policies and reserving Section 44-32 through 44-240 and Article 3 and 4 for future use, amending the City Land Development Code by amending Article 2 definitions, Sections 2.1.1 General, Article 4 Site Development Plans, Division 2 Procedures for securing approval of site development plans, subsections 4.2.4 exceptions, Article 5 subdivision regulations, Division 4 recording plats, subsection 5.4.2 approval and payment of fees required, Article 7 environmental utilities, Article 8 landscaping and tree protection, Division 1 general provisions, sections 8.1.1.1 proposed and applicability, and Division 5 landscaping, Section 8.5.13 landscaping and utility service areas, Article 8 landscaping and tree protection, Division 6 irrigation, Section 8.6.1 irrigation intent of division, Article 8 landscaping and tree protection, Division 6 irrigation, Section 8.6.2 irrigation systems, Article 8 landscaping and tree protection, Division 6 irrigation, Section 8.6.3 irrigation design installation, providing for suburbility, conflict, administrative corrections, codification, and effective date.
Good evening, Cameron Crandall, Environmental Utilities. Bringing forward ordinance 2022-56. This is the final public hearing for the St. Cloud Utilities Integration Code revisions. In general, this is changes to the city code and the city land development code pertaining to the utility management by Toho from the interlocal agreement from February 10th, 2022 between the City of St. Cloud and Toho Water Authority. And I'll go through, briefly go through the changes we made. In Chapter 44 of the utilities, we're referencing the interlocal agreement with the City of St. Cloud and Toho Water Authority. And we're removing the language we had in there previously. Same things with Articles 3 and 4. The blanked out, and they just read now as reserved. In the Land Development Code, Article 2, we're adding references to Water Authority, which is TOHO, and the Water Authority Executive Director. Then in Article 4, dealing with site development plans, we're referencing Water Authority again and the Water Authority Executive Director. Further changes to the Land Development Code having to do with subdivision regulations, recording of the final plat, adding direct references to the Water Authority, and also including, we're adding to make sure Toho Water Authority is named in the performance and maintenance bond for the water sewer reclaim projects. Changes to Article 7, Environmental Utilities. Once again, referencing that interlocal agreement with Toho Water Authority, as well as referencing Toho's requirements and standards. More changes to the Land Development Code, Article 8, having to do with landscaping and tree protection. We're directly referencing Toho's criteria for water efficiency. More changes to Article 8, landscaping and tree protection, referencing Toho's vegetation management standards within public utility easements. More changes to Article 8, landscaping and tree protection, directly referencing Toho's criteria for water efficiency. Even more changes to Article 8, landscaping, tree protection, referencing alternative water supply such as rainwater, stormwater, reclaimed water to use for irrigation. Article 8, landscaping, tree protection, we're referencing Toho Water's conservation principles and criteria for water efficiency and standards. And then there's some minor changes to severability, conflict, codification, administrative correction, and publication effective date. Staff recommends approval of Ordinance 2022-56. This went before the Planning Commission. They recommended approval of Ordinance 2022-56, and we're requesting approval from the City of St. Cloud of Ordinance 2022-56.
Thank you. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? If not, we'll have discussion and/or a motion by council.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion from Councilmember Matheny, a second from the mayor. Madam Clerk?
Deputy Mayor Matheny.
Aye.
Councilmember Urban.
Aye.
Councilmember Askew. Councilmember Trace.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Brings us to council action. And the first item under council action, Madam Clerk, please read that.
Resolution number 2022-261R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, approving the First Amendment to that certain agreement with St. Cloud Main Street, Inc. for funding in an amount not to exceed an additional $50,000 for implementation of the Cloud Cash program and authorizing the city manager to execute the First Amendment to the agreement and providing for an effective date.
Good evening, Antoinette Forbes, Economic Development Manager. This item is Resolution 2022-261R. It's in reference to an amendment to the Main Streets Agreement under the Downtown Economic Gardening Program. As the council remembers, they, via consensus, had agreed and authorized the city manager to create this Downtown Economic Gardening Program with a series of programming, and one of them being for Cloud Cash. And Cloud Cash will be administered and executed through St. Cloud Main Street. That initial agreement was up to $50,000, which was under the city manager's authority, and that program will be executed up until the end of this calendar year. Main Street is currently in the process of recruiting the downtown businesses to participate in it, so that when they advertise to consumers, consumers know exactly what businesses will be are choosing to participate in that program. So the purpose of this amendment will increase that funding now to a total of $100,000 to, again, allow them to really push out more Cloud Cash to that program and hopefully be a direct infusion into our local economy. Any questions? Oh, hang on one second. So staff recommends approval of Resolution 2022-261R and requests council does the same.
Thank you. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? If not, then we'll have discussion under motion or questions by council.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion from Councilmember Matheny,
Second.
a second from Councilmember Trace. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Urban.
Aye.
Councilmember Askew. Councilmember Trace.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Brings us to item number 2022-262R, which is an addendum to the agenda.
Resolution number 2022-262R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, approving the execution and delivery of a quick claim deed for certain real property from the City of St. Cloud to the Stevens Plantation Improvement Project Dependent Special District and authorizing the mayor to execute the quit claim deed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This add-on item was required by virtue of some information that was recently discovered with regard to the Stevens Plantation proposed sale of tracks 4 and 5 at the corporate campus to Madison Grove. Thankfully, and hopefully, we will have this thing closed by the end of the month. We're looking at September 28th close date. The most recent title search for these properties as part of the closing transaction revealed the 1996 deed that the city received from the Mary A. Stevens Corporation, which is the entity that the city essentially bought the Stevens Plantation property from. That's showing up as a title exception or a cloud on the title that has to be addressed. We are not sure how this has only come up in this recent review. It didn't show up when we had the recent closing on tracks 6 and 8A to LRS. It hasn't showed up, and it didn't show up when we did a closing on track 3, which is obviously here. So we're not sure how it's only showed up at this time. Essentially, adding and replanting the property should have taken care of this old deed, but it didn't. A little additional information about this: in 2016, the city received some public utility easements that are along and adjacent as part of this property along tracks 4 and 5. Go to the next slide, please.
Jeff, can you grab the clicker, please?
Oh, just push the button. There, okay. Thank you. So the box, the entire box that you see there, I can't really tell what color it is because I'm slightly colorblind, is the property that was the subject of the 1996 deed, and there exists a stormwater pond on that. The yellow and crosshatched area that you're seeing across 2 tracks, that is the easement area that runs along tracks 4 and 5. Those track lines there and those property lines are tracks 4 and 5. So what is being asked of the city is for the city to essentially to issue provide a quitclaim deed to the Stevens Plantation Dependent Special District for whatever interest the city might have in tracks 4 and 5 as it relates to that 1996 deed. And you can see how it encroaches into tracks 4 and 5 there. Those quitclaim deeds would transfer whatever right the city may have in that. We don't necessarily think it has a right because of the platting and the replatting, but it's still showing up on the title. However, the deeds would reserve back to the city those easements that are needed to work for the city to have to stormwater ponds there and some monitoring walls on there. So to the next slide, please, Jeff. Thank you. So we're tonight asking that the City Council approve Resolution 2022-262R, approves a quitclaim deed in favor of the Dependent Special District from the city, which would ultimately be transferred to Madison Grove at closing. It reserves and preserves the city's utility rights in those easement utility rights, and we'd ask the council to approve Resolution 2022-262R. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benzares. At this time, we'll have public comment. Mr. Meissner.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is David Meisner. I live in Stevens Plantation. I support this resolution. I just have one question. I want to ensure that the property owner will be responsible for maintaining the easement, and the city will remain responsible for the borrow pit. in that area. I'm against Madison building a 7-story building, which will be the tallest building in St. Cloud as far as I have. So when it comes to planning, I'll probably object at that time. But if I can get clarification, who will be responsible for maintaining that easement on properties?
You have the question?
That's it, sir.
All right.
Well, with regard to the borough pit or the area that's there, the city, that's the city's, and the city's responsible to maintain, and the city will be maintaining that as it has been. The easement area will be maintained by Madison Grove because it is an easement across their fee simple property. They can maintain it, and they will maintain it without interfering with the city's right to use it for the city's purposes.
Thank you. At this time, anyone else like to speak to this item? At this time, we'll have a discussion and motion. Council.
Thank you. So I put the city staff services this week as this item came up, the graphic sketch and the item of 5 today. Yeah, you got to put it up here and get credit. Go GIS department. So yeah, my concern is, you know, is that going to cut off maintenance to the pond, and are you still going to be able to get all the way around the pond, and you know all those other things? And so we've read the easement documents with the attorney's office, and it does maintain all rights in the future for access, drainage, maintenance, things like that. And my big concern was, I don't want Madison Grove to fence off the area, which would cause a hardship to access around the outside. But I've been assured that that's going to be evaluated as the site comes through and access will be maintained. But yeah, I feel comfortable now that I've seen the graphic of exactly what's happening. And since the easements remain, if you read the easement, it says utility easement, but it covers everything in drainage, utilities, maintenance, ingress. It's got everything covered.
Councilmember Trace.
Thank you. So Schedule A, describe property, that red box around it. Were there easement rights throughout that entire red box and we need to correct for all the other properties? Or is it just lot 3, 4, 5?
The other, we did, like, there are easement rights throughout there. However, they were already accepted as part of the title work. There were exemptions. They were excluded from the title. Was easement rights.
Okay. Looks like it covers east.
Yeah.
9 lots.
This issue was the title companies were concerned about it. The 20 easements that were referred to are all along run are all part of the title work that was done for the other properties. So those property owners have to comply with the same thing.
Okay.
And you can see the easement, it kind of gets a little narrower as you move forward.
Yeah, just now that you're showing this Schedule A described property as whole area bigger than that as well, so I don't know if that caused another issue.
Well, if you look, are you looking at Schedule A to the quitclaim deed?
No, just Schedule A on this map.
Oh, there, okay. Yeah, well, the Schedule A that's on that map is the Schedule A to the 1996 deed. Okay. And quitclaim deed, we're asking the council to approve, are referred to essentially just tracks 4 and 5 at Stevens.
Yeah.
And exclude the easement right areas from the dedication, from the deed.
And then, do we need to have a DSD meeting between now and that closing to accept this or change anything, or is
No,
that all?
not with regard to this. I will tell you, I'm assuming that we are very, very hopeful. Everybody's scrambling to get this property closed, which usually means it's going to get done because there's a lot of people working on it right now. So we will probably have one DSD meeting left to do. Know Mr. Meisner a long time, and he has been pestering me about an issue that he found and brought it to my attention regarding Progress Boulevard, so we have to have a DSD meeting to address that.
Is that the green shaded out area that was never made right of way? It's just an easement?
It's
I
dedicated.
pulled up the plat today, so I
Yes, you are correct.
Okay.
It's not even made, it's just shown as being owned by the Stevens DSD. So we have to,
I think you can see it on this
Yeah.
map, shaded.
Yeah.
I can see that. I can't tell what color it is, but I can see so we're going to have we're going to ask the DSD board to basically to approve a right-of-way dedication deed for that strip of progress.
Okay, and then when this closing happens at the end of the month, and then I guess this other stuff cleaned up, DSD will be donezo?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you.
I'm
Do
celebrating.
you have any other question or discussion?
Motion to approve council action item 9.2.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Trace, a second from Councilmember Matheny. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Askew, Councilmember Trace,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny,
Aye.
Councilmember Urban,
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Mr. Manzares, you have anything for us?
I do not, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Miss Manager Miller, do you have anything for us?
I do. It's not the entire folder. I just wanted to take the opportunity to introduce our new HR director, Justin Klusner. He is a self-described cheesehead. He has quite a bit of local government HR work. He was the deputy director of human resources with, I'm going to say this wrong, Outagamie County, Wisconsin for 4 years. He was the HR specialist with Fond du Lac County, Wisconsin for 7 years. He is a Society for Human Resource Management certified HR professional and AmeriCorps volunteer, and we are so excited to have him join our team. You can stand up so everyone in the audience can see you. And then also, City Council, I sent you an email congratulating Kevin Felblinger, who is our new Public Works Director. But I also want to recognize that we were able to maintain an incredible employee, Cameron Crandall, who was scheduled to transfer to the utility, Toho Water, but we were able to have him stay as our Deputy Public Works Director, I guess October 1st. So next time you see him, he will have a different title, but we're very excited we were able to have him stay with the city.
Excellent. Very good.
And that's all.
Councilmember Matheny.
I have 3 short things. Just kidding. I don't have anything. Nothing.
That's it?
That's it.
Councilmember Urban.
Nothing for me, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Trace.
I think we might need to update our technology a little bit. That was kind of painful, but nothing else.
All right.
Phone?
I received an email today from Brandon Cordero, and he is expressing his concern that Lakeview Elementary School is the only school in St. Cloud without school zone lights. And he says the question is why, if every other school has them, why does not Lakeview have them? And I was just wondering if the staff could check into this, if there's a consensus here. Any objections?
Sure.
Are there crossing guards at that 5th and?
I can't answer that
Yes.
question. I
Yes,
think
there are.
crossing
There are
guards.
crossing
Yes, there
guards?
are.
Okay, but lights would be nice, or signage, or whatever we need to do.
All right.
Happy to look into that.
All right, thank you very much. And I have another email that I'd like to read into the record. My name is Deborah Main. My husband is John. He suffers from dementia and muscular weakness. He is almost bedridden. Since before he became bedridden through the present, he has had numerous falls. I am physically challenged myself, making it impossible to get him up off the floor. I do not even know how many times I've had to call our fire department just to pick him up and get him settled. Just this morning, I walked out of the bedroom to the family room where we have his hospital bed with rails situated. I found John laying across the bed and at the foot of the bed. I had to call for assistance once again. I do not know exactly which station they are dispatched from, but these amazing men and women have always been so kind and helpful. They have never made me feel like we were being a bother for such a non-emergency call. It may be such a small thing compared to true emergencies, but it is a huge thing to me. I felt the need to share my story and to let you know that I am grateful to our public safety departments. Signed, Remain, 3180 Bayview Lane here in St. Cloud. And I just want to say, on her behalf, thank you, Mr. Miller and your department for the incredible work that you guys do serving our community. Thank you so much. All right. With that, I don't have any other items. Brings us to our information section and report section. Thursday, October the 6th, 2022, there will be a city council meeting at 6:30 p.m. here in council chambers. Thursday, October the 27th, there'll be a city council meeting, 6:30 p.m. here in council chambers. There are no other items on our agenda, and with that, we will be adjourned.